I don't think that maker spaces are production spaces. This is not just about production, give the machines to people and, crazily and everybody is a maker. That's not true. I mean, I believe that's not going to happen. So basically IKEA made you being part of their assembly line. You became part of the last step of the industry of IKEA. You can make fabrication optional, You can say, we can design for you, we can make for you, but if you want, you can customize it, and even you can be part of a production process. I mean, that's the kind of future I start to imagine. It's a collaboration, but no, it's not, I would say it's not like a 100% altruistic collaboration. It's yes, I want to collaborate and share this purpose, but I want to make money, and it's totally valid.
Welcome to the first episode of the Fab City Hamburg podcast, where we talk with leaders from the Fab City network. The Fab City network wants to reimagine how cities operate to develop locally productive and globally connected self-sufficient cities by the year of 2054. And in Hamburg, we do this with a special focus on digital infrastructure. So stay with us for the upcoming episodes where we hear from super talented speakers about the future of circular economy, digital product passports, blockchain, legal side of open innovation and more. We'll talk with real great lawyers, cryptographers, innovators and others with decades of experience. If you're new to our Fab City community, we drop a new episode every month, and please subscribe wherever you consume our content. If this content is helpful to you, it's a real gift to me if you could rate it or review it. That would be amazing. Also, thank you so much to those of you who are sharing on social media. All right, let's go into our content for today.
Sweet. So my name is Tomas Diez, and I'm a founding partner and executive director of the Fab City Foundation. And I do other stuff, but maybe we keep it like that.
So there's probably people know Fab Labs, but what is a Fab City and what are the goals of a Fab City? So give us a perspective on this.
Yeah, Fab City is an initiative that emerges from the Fab Lab network. It happens when you mix urbanism with the technologies to transform a productive model of society, and start to imagine how cities can be transformed by introducing these technologies on a whole new scale. No? So we have seen the growth of the Fab Lab network for over 20 years, growing organically into an international network, providing the tools and the technology and the science for people to learn about making things in a whole new way. And we identify the need to scale up what these labs can do, and not only limited to the lab itself, but connected to the local community, connected to the city, to regional dimension of where these labs are located. So basically the Fab City Global Initiative is trying to scale up the potential impact of Fab Labs. I'm not referring to turning Fab Labs into microfactories, but Fab Labs being the catalysts for this transition to a new productive model, and then support the development of the technology, the mindset, in order to adopt this local production, keep the materials circulating locally, because they're heavy, they're expensive to move, and then keep the data flowing globally, which is the designs, the knowledge, and instructions on how things work.
Okay, you were talking about a whole new way, you just said. And I think often, even for me, it was kind of a mindset shift. And I had to learn the principles. And I think it's sometimes very different from what you see in traditional production industry. Mm-hmm. Can you make that a bit more clear? What is the core difference?
I mean, it has many implications, right? Like the current production or industrial paradigm is based, first of all, on the scarcity of certain supply chains, right? It's having the access to a supply chain that is special, mysterious, dangerous, complicated to extract. What I would say, minerals, materials. I mean, some more easy than others, no? I don't know, tantalum is more difficult to extract than copper, no? So far today. But it's based on this extractive mindset. It also needs to be connected with the limited access to the means of production, right, in the hands of industry, where in most of the cases, our consumerism paradigm is relying on cheap labor that is associated with this centralized production places. Then we need to have, within this paradigm, we need to move a lot of things, the raw materials to turn them into products, then turn them and ship them to where they're going to be consumed. So for that, you need cheap oil, right? And then in order to keep cheap oil going, you need a certain political system to control these resources. So if you follow where the main materials of the world come, that supply the industries itself, and the energy that is fueling all of this, you will find it's like a recurring, anti-democratic regimes, right? Like running these resources. So it's an industrial paradigm that, in my opinion, is linear, extractive, but also it relies on again a model in which there is control and somehow and how you call it, an accumulation of the power in few people. When we talk about this new paradigm of production, it has huge implications because we're saying, okay, production capabilities doesn't need to be exclusive or limited or very special. They actually can be shared with everyone. So we can have, the knowledge on how to make the machines that make the infrastructure in order to supply people what they need can be open. We can have the open designs of urban farms that can help us to produce food more efficiently, consuming less water, occupying less soil, less amounts of land, for instance. Or, we can share the instructions of how hydrogen cells are done and doesn't need to be like a secret of an industry protected by the legal team in order to maximize the exploitations of that, right? So we're really saying, we have open knowledge, we have open networks, there is access to open hardware tools. What if this is the way to go to a new productive model that, first of all, creates less compromises with the natural resources that we consume. It creates better relationships between people, which is not relationships of exploitation, and still, allow us to live find another purpose to live, right? Like, which is not kind of going out from this endless machine, feeling like a hamster and trying to feed someone else, accumulation needs, but it's actually you being master of your own destiny in some way, right? Like, or people or communities, depending on where you are. So I think that's what a vision of a productive society can bring, and we call it Fab City because a brand helps to articulate it and kind of combines the history. We start from the fabs, from how fabrication, production, technologies can transform the way we live in cities where most of the people live right now in the world.
Cool. So a friend of us, Andrew Lamb from Internet of Production Alliance, he said we want to go from mass production to production of the masses.
Yeah.
Is that something you're referring to also?
I don't believe, I don't share too much that approach. I believe that, I don't think that maker spaces are production spaces. I believe that the way that we are articulating this within the Fab ecosystem is, first of all, this is not just about production, give the machines to people and, crazily and everybody is a maker. That's not true. I mean, I believe that that's not going to happen. What I believe strongly is that, we have a very, there are for me two very deep starting points that we need to keep in consideration. One is science and technology. I mean, we cannot disregard all the advances that we have done in science. It can really help to live better in this world. And right now what we're seeing is that science is working, in some cases for only economic reasons or financial purposes, right? So we need to remember that science is here to help us live better. And then the other fundamental root of everything what we're doing is life, right? And how science can support the life in this planet, which at the end of the day is what gives us a great, habitat to live, great nutrients to eat, which lead us to better health. So it's very simple. It's using science to nurture life, which at the end of the day creates a better experience in the 80 or 100 years that you are alive. So it's very simple. So I would root this on science and life, and life includes also life in a very broad sense. It's like technology is not only what we need. We also need cultural knowledge and how that cultural knowledge, especially from ancestral people, can connect us to life in different ways. So this marriage is super important. So start from that, and then I believe that we don't, again, not everyone needs to make. I think that still you can be very, I believe we need to change to live a regenerative life. No? And you can be a consumer, but then imagine that if the materials you consume, actually in their life cycle, they capture carbon, right? They add nutrients to the soil. They capture microplastics in the ocean and take them away from our food chain, for instance. No? So I mean that you have shoes made out of an entire new materials that actually, when you throw them in your garden, they really, become compost, and then you can grow, other lettuce or whatever other thing that you want to eat. Or if we have, I was talking the other day with someone with a very capitalistic mindset and say, you know what, in the US, people like to buy hats in the baseball games. We need to make hats in the Fab Labs. I go, well, no, it's not really like that. But actually, if you find a business opportunity, what if yes, let's make a business on prototyping something that can go to industry, right? Prototyping in the Fab Lab, a product that can go into industry. I still believe that we need industry, so we're not replacing industry, we are evolving industry. But instead of be made out of a material that never degrades, is actually a carbon capture hat. So imagine if we have, there's so many people buying hats in baseball games, imagine each one of them is capturing some carbon. Or if you wear the hat and then it has a life cycle of 6 months, and you know that, because now that's another thing that happens. Industry wants to keep you consuming, right? But then the problem is that things are made to last. So what if industry made things not to last too much, can keep on consuming, and out of this cycle of consumption, look how contradictory it sounds like what I'm saying. Every cycle of consumption, we are capturing plastics, carbon, pollution from all our natural ecosystems. So this is a whole new approach to regeneration of the planet that I believe is not just about make. It's about thinking holistically of the implications of a distributed model of production.
Okay, then you're really thinking of the way we design, thinking circular, so bringing those mindsets.
Yeah.
Coming from Fab Labs, where we have a space of innovation.
Yeah.
And trying to, you said, evolve industry with that.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds fascinating.
Yeah, and I believe an industry, I mean that with, we did this exercise with IKEA, right? And we told them, look, that was the Made Again challenge we did in Barcelona in, I think, 2015 or 2016. And we told them, look, we want to prototype what could be the future model of IKEA, that instead of having... IKEA has been great, by the way. IKEA has democratized the assembly line. Right? It's not democratizing design, it's democratizing the assembly line. So basically IKEA made you being part of their assembly line. You became part of the last step of the industry of IKEA. So then they have warehouses outside the cities where you pick up the flat packed furniture, and then you spend time in your house, which is valuable, on assembling the furniture of IKEA, right? So you are working on the assembly line. It's you're the Ford assembler in the early ages of the current industrial paradigm. But then we were saying, what if you can evolve this, and then instead of having warehouses outside the city, you have factories, clean factories inside the city that manufacture on-demand products that are co-designed by your consumers, and they only use local materials, right? So it means that you have a smart factories on demand that are producing things that people are needing, and then you can keep that going, right? Then you have the materials that maybe come back. So a sofa, then it goes to, someone wants to change it, and then goes back to the material library at the local level, then it's taken into a part because it's designed modularly. And then you can use one part to make a future chair. You can then take one of the fabrics and dissolve it into some kind of turn it into a new nutrient, and then you use it to grow food in the restaurant across the street. So we were saying this is the production paradigm that we imagine for the future of IKEA, right? So they still have access to infrastructure, they manage it, but the relationship with the customer is a bit different. The customer ends up being like the co-designer and you can make fabrication optional. You can say, we can design for you, we can make for you, but if you want, you can customize it, and even you can be part of a production process. I mean, that's the kind of future I start to imagine.
So that's kind of where we use the word prosumer, which is a product, like someone who's producing and consuming.
Yeah.
Right.
And then production, it doesn't mean only like a hammering, it means also you can customize things. And then you've seen like many, even the car industry is allowing customers to customize things.
Right,
and the Nike shoes is one of the clear examples as well.
All right. So let's switch a bit more to the boring topic of like infrastructure.
Yeah.
Because in Hamburg, we're thinking a lot about infrastructure, like digital infrastructure, and you came up with this idea of global flowing bits and local circulating atoms.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that these global flowing bits work as best as possible. So the other day I talked to your colleague Kate, and something stuck into my head, which was we are not doing platforms. So I think you experienced something, and also you have a idea behind this or a strategy. And I think it has to do with also the many cultures, so that you don't want to say, we know how a platform works and we bring in the platform, and then the whole world needs to work inside that structure, but we haven't been able to talk to everyone, and we haven't been able to understand culture and different regions in the world and so on. Is that the case, actually?
I mean, as you say, there's digital infrastructure and there's this physical infrastructure.
Right.
Before going to the specific question of the digital infrastructure, I think the physical infrastructure is also a big part of this. And I find fascinating also, again, from this discovery, right? Of this journey of analyzing how we do things, where the big money was put in the 20th century. And if you think about the infrastructure, it has been infrastructure to move atoms, right? We have the aerospace industry advanced very rapidly. The automotive industry, one of the most advanced in the 20th century. Big investment from governments on building, railways, airports, ports, advancements of marine shipping. Let's be the big the project of building a bigger canal of Panama in Nicaragua, for instance. No, let's try to move more things more rapidly. So I believe that the 21st century infrastructure needs to actually go in a completely different direction. Is the flexible factories, is material digesters at the city scale, is energy production at the local scale, is food production at the local scale, but then this taken as the infrastructure in which the big money, big government can invest, right? This needs to be hand by hand with a digital infrastructure that supports the movement of bits. And there's where I believe that we have a lot of limitations at the moment. I think that we are, myself, I've been involved in the development of platforms, right? Digital platforms to allow people to connect with each other, like Fab Labs.io. I co-founded it with John Rees, an amazing programmer from the UK. And very naively, we thought that this could become, the platform of the Fab Labs where projects, people talk to each other, projects are documented, people talk to each other, and then we'll accelerate the Fab Lab evolution. It did it in some way because it allowed Fab Labs to be registered, recognized by each other. People started to talk in the forum. The project documentation didn't work as expected, and then the whole platform idea, in one platform rules them all, I think started to be kind of obsolete. What I started to see then is that there are many other platforms that are doing a fantastic job within their own communities on either helping designers to sell their products in a whole digital way, either connecting designers with local manufacturers, mapping manufacturing capacity of a region like MakeWorks, etc., etc. And also a project documentation, project co-design online, etc., etc. So I believe that then the role of Fab City Foundation and the Fab City Global Initiative in relation to this doesn't need to be let's try to own everyone, and then we are the platform to do all of this. So instead of that, I've been pushing more for the Fab Chain idea. the Fab chain idea at the end is using the potential of blockchain technologies, where I believe that go beyond the crypto, creating crypto assets and creating more speculation, but actually helping new governance model, trusted certification, kind of orchestration of cooperation at scale, that I believe can bring together and connect together all these platforms under very clear rules of engagement, right? In which no platform is taking the other one, which I believe many of the platforms are taking that mindset, and that's really not healthy. It's toxic. But actually creating the rules of engagement for doing our purpose, right? And knowing that if you are participating into this platform ecosystem, you know what you are giving and what you're getting somehow, and or at least which are the rules that define that. So my advocacy in relationship to platforms is not creating more platforms from our perspective as Fab City, but helping platforms to be connected and being aligned, and in that, again, that gives more economic opportunity for each one of these platforms, that creates that mobilizes us on a totally different scale, because there will never be I'm kind of 99.9% sure there won't be a one platform rule them all kind of thing, which is, again, very digital capitalism mindset. It's interesting to see all these people preaching for open production and distributed manufacturing and open collaboration, and they're trying to be the market owners of a platform ecosystem. And that's toxic. We should really be careful about, preaching this and supporting these efforts, and we should really work together on creating at least our declaration of intentions is what we want to do with working with you and other people in developing this platform ecosystem, and create a clear message to the world on what we want to do with our digital infrastructure.
Right. Yeah, that is very interesting. This declaration of intentions.
Yeah.
So then we can also find people in specific focus areas and hook them on, and then we have people on the blockchain level, on the community level, on the economic model level, and all these people with the same intentions can connect, and that's awesome.
And I've already gone through a few of them. You have the precious plastics community, right? Which they have not only the documented machines, but also the bazaar. They have a marketplace, and then you have the services of each one of the precious plastic nodes, and it's amazing that you have. I met this platform in Barcelona, in the south of Spain. They're called Faberin. So they do two things. They connect designers to the market. So it's a marketplace for designers, similar to Etsy, a very kind of a crafts-oriented, very unique designers, young designers. They connect them with customers, but they connect them with manufacturers, right? And regionalized manufacturers. Fascinating. And they want to make money. It's perfect. And I think that they still play a role in this platform ecosystem, no? There are other platforms that are working on the open project documentation. Thingiverse, Hackaday. There have an immense amount of people documenting, publishing projects. I'm sure that people would like to see at least their efforts being recognized when someone else downloads, copy one of the circuit designs and apply it to something else and becomes a product. No, imagine you create this kind of a chain of value distribution when there is these added contributions to projects that already exist. And FabLabs.io also it's a platform that helps you to connect with the specific nodes of production, where you identify people with the skills and bring in also to the mix. Imagine the designer needs to prototype something with someone in the Fab Lab, and the Fab Lab, you can do the prototype, and then with MakeWorks you have access to the manufacturing capacity at the regional level, and then you set it in Faberin. It's these kind of things that I see. These are micro transactions between platforms that we can program. We can definitely embed into. First of all, we can declare the values that we want to embed in this kind of transactional approach. It's a collaboration, but no, it's not. I would say it's not like a 100% altruistic collaboration. It's yes, I want to collaborate and share this purpose, but I want to make money, and that's totally valid. And we should incentivize people that are willing to create economies, because if we share the same purpose with them and they're doing well and they grow their business, then they're going to be attracting more people that are like-minded, and will be demonstrated that these alternative models of productions are viable and they can generate wealth.
Great. Yeah. Let me look at the questions I have here.
Okay.
There was one question about this commons-oriented nature of Fab Cities. I mean, you're like a flexible, right?
Yeah. I understand people that come from a more theoretical background, and then Elinor Ostrom, right? Like the commons approach from Elinor Ostrom, and the theoretical, background, which is also based on practical experience. It's recognizable, commendable. But I believe that one of the things that we should learn also is that you cannot put ideology on top of practicality. I think that's something that we tend to do, especially in the European context, I can say. It's like there's an ideological layer, that a moralistic approach to certain things that sometimes delays, it slows down innovation. And I think that there are ways to not being sacrificed by a theory or a certain set of values that values need to evolve. Society keeps evolving. We cannot really put ourselves and anchor ourselves in one way of doing things. So, and what we have learned also is that hybridization brings a lot of benefits, no? So could be a commons capitalism, you know what I mean? Like could be a profitable commons, and how the profit is distributed. I understand that it's within the model, and it sounds great in theory, but when you go into practice, we need to recognize that we are negotiating with a world that exists. And you cannot expect that you say, no, because I'm the good person, I read a lot about this, I know the truth, you all need to change to this, and if you don't change, you are my enemy, right? I think that we need to accept that this is a constant negotiation, especially in transition moments that are full of paradoxes. Like we are talking about all of this, we are recording in an iPhone, right? Is this, and I'm wearing Nikes, I don't know. But I think putting ourselves into these fixed ideologies can be, I don't think it will help to advance. We need to be flexible without compromising on real values and on real ethical principles and our purpose. First of all, the purpose. No? So.
Right. I talked to the other Thomas from Joggle, which is just one giant lab.
Yes.
And he said it's all about impact.
Yeah.
So you want to have impact. You don't want to have this ideologies or...
I believe so. Yeah. It ends up with something that's been said yesterday in the innovation panel. It's like whatever works at the end of the day, right? I know whatever works is not let's kill the orangutans in Borneo, of course, but there are some principles, and I was talking about the fundamental principles of life preservation, right? In order to get there, right, it's not going to happen from one day to the other. And people mindset don't change from one day to another. Also, I learned with this event being it's very new to this context in Indonesia and in Bali, the Bali Fab Fest. And it was very difficult to explain what was going to happen. And I can tell you, it's easy, it's easy to say it now, but I was sure that the moment that people entered and see what's happening, they will, be like, finally, I understand. Like, what you didn't tell me is this is what I've been telling you for the last 6 months. We need to put ourselves also in demonstrating. If you have a theory that works and you want people to know about it, and you want to prove that this works, build it and make other people experience it, right? And that's the way to convince others, not trying to control their behavior based on what someone else says the behavior should be. So I think that's a good example. We need these kind of spaces. It could be an event, can be an educational program in which we create the environment in which we start to experience ourselves and get the idea of how this thing works. No? I think that's a very important role of prototyping at neighborhoods, prototyping at small communities, these new models of production that can give very, very good insights.
Yeah, thank you. I have a last question, which is what makes the Fab network qualified for being a leader in this transition?
I never saw the Fab network as a leader of this transition.
All right.
I see it as a catalyst and an enabler, right? It's a catalyst because again, I like what is happening because it's not something I just need to sit down on my desk in a forest and write it down and create the most complicated theory in the most complicated language to pretend that I am very sophisticated and advanced that nobody understands what's the world that is going to come, right? As many, big thinkers done in the past, no? And then I'm not comparing them with any of them. I'm just saying what fascinates me about what is happening is that I've seen this thing growing, no? Like when we opened Fab Lab Barcelona in 2007, it was like a Fab Lab number 10 in the world, and now there is 2,500. I did the Fab Academy alpha version, being a student of Neil from Barcelona, taking the MIT class, how to make almost anything. I went through this process and or understanding that, I experienced myself the importance of being exposed to an environment in which you can make things and you can have access to other people that know how to make things, and you teach them, they teach you. And you learn from the environment as importantly as you learn from the book, from the tutorial that you follow in YouTube. And it's creating this experience, right? So I see this being created, being growing, right? And I see every Fab Lab as an opportunity for this learning experience to happen. And now I see even more potential of trying to expand this and not limit it to the lab, but taking it out of the lab and making it happen at the neighborhood or at the community, small community scale, no? In which you have the lab or in other projects working together on let's deal with the waste at the local level. What we can do. Let's deal with the certain food supply chains. Let's identify how we do with our materials that we need for X, Y, Z. I'm talking about few thousand people. And then I see the lab can start to activate this process, but then it's gonna grow so big, and then it's gonna go beyond the labs. And I think it's something that we used to say also, that the success of all of this is linked with our disappearance. Means that when we don't need Fab Labs in the world, it's because the vision has been accomplished. It means that you don't, Fab Labs were like at the internet cafes, right? Internet cafes 25, 30 years ago. There, how many are left? They were in the world. Very little amount of internet cafes. So now internet is everywhere. Similarly, I believe that the disappearance of Fab Labs is the success of a change of paradigm to a new productive society, and therefore the disappearance of Fab City itself. We exist only because we have to exist, but we are not working on making our existence perpetual. It's more like we are working on making our own disappearance, at least hopefully before 2054.
Thank you very much. I think
super.
I appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much.